All right, welcome back to the Founder-led Marketing Show. I'm here with Danielle Messler, who is the head of marketing at Founderpath, and Founderpath helps B2B SaaS founders get non-dilutive capital. Is that a good way to frame it?
Yeah, we help founders grow faster with, as you said, non-dilutive capital. So you're not giving up that equity, free tools that help you see your metrics and financials very clearly, and then community. So resources, support, all of those kind of intangible things that you need when you're a founder.
Right. And I brought Danielle on because, generally we talk to founders and CEOs, but Founderpath and founder and CEO being Nathan Latka, who I feel like probably everyone in our audience will have at least heard about, because I feel like when you're in SaaS, this is kind of one of the names you don't really get around. I feel like she will have a lot of great perspective. So I wanted to just explore a couple things with you, but maybe the first question, which is a little off topic, how do you land a job with Nathan Latka? Because I feel like I get the sense that he has very high standards, and that, I mean, he has a big audience, so he probably has a lot of people to pick and choose from. So I'm curious how that went down and how it happened, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working with Nathan for about 2 years now, which is crazy. So even before my Founderpath time, I won't get into the whole story, but I didn't really start with a traditional career in marketing. I didn't go into it and slowly work my way up the ladder or anything like that. I actually started my career in finance. I was a municipal bond analyst and at Standard and Poor's, and then another asset manager. So that's where I got started, but I was pretty bored creatively. So I started creating content that was like locally based in Boston, where I'm from. And then, long story short, leveraged it into working for a woman named Mel Robbins, who is, she was the, most book motivational female speaker in the world. So when she was really ramping up, it was kind of in the heyday of Instagram. So when she was ramping up that content there, actually got brought on as the first director of social media to build out a team there to grow our audience, and ended up growing that from about 20 to 30,000 across our channels at the time to over 1.5 million in less than 2 years. Yeah. And we landed a TV show. We had multiple best-selling Audible originals at the time. So it was a very, very cool ride. And then jumped into the world of SaaS. Ended up at Profitwell working with Patrick Campbell, which was great right before the acquisition with Paddle. And then I kind of had a reset. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So I went out on my own. I had a couple of clients that I had been working with and kind of took that jump. And that is how Nathan found me. I think he was looking for people that kind of had that unique content experience, the Profitwell style, if you will. I'm sure people on here are familiar with Profitwell and Patrick and the content that they put out now under Paddle Studios, which when we were there, it was Recur. So actually Nathan found me on LinkedIn and reached out and was like, just, want to know what you're doing. Like, would love to just have a chat. And in true Nathan fashion, we had like a very quick 15-minute chat. Well, it was scheduled for 15 minutes and then we went over, which, Nathan doesn't do. He's very to the point. And I started working with him on a couple. Yeah, exactly. And I started working with him on a couple of projects. I helped him with writing his newsletter and was really involved on the Get Latka side of things. As you know, that's like his podcast, the database. And that was when Founderpath was really kind of the word I'm looking for. It was coming together. Like they're starting to build out the team a bit, and a couple of tasks from Founderpath started coming onto my plate. And then I really liked it. So we eventually had kind of that full-time discussion. So I, shut down all the other clients and came in full-time in-house. So sorry for the long, windy story, but there's a little bit of background there.
That's what I was looking for. And I'm curious, we call it, and I mean, that's the name of the show, Founder-led Marketing. And I feel like Nathan Latka is a prime example of that. I'm curious if you would agree with that framing or that term, or if you just think about it as like it's marketing or it's personal branding.
I would 100% agree with that. I think that if you had to describe the style of what we're doing, founder led is the perfect way to describe it. I think there wouldn't be a founder path without Nathan's audience that he built first. And you can call that marketing, you can call it content, whatever it is. That was really the backbone of why Founderpath exists, through talking to founders, finding that common problem, and the one that Nathan, that resonated with him on a personal level. So yeah, I think we've been founder led marketing, everything from the very beginning.
Right. And I mean, and we'll dive into some of these things, but you guys there's the podcast, obviously, that Nathan does. There's the monthly live event show thing, which is like the most interactive, high energy webinar I've ever seen. You can't really
They're
call
fun,
it a
right?
webinar. It's so good. No. And, there's events that you guys do, but I'm just curious, what are the benefits that you see with founder-led marketing? Because the standard play would be CEO founder brings in a head of marketing and they're like, you do the marketing. So like they would tell you like, write the blog post for us, write the content, host the webinar, do the podcast, whatever you need. But I'm over here doing sales and product and whatever, versus you have someone like Nathan Latka out there. So how do you see the benefits rather than if you would have to like run the podcast or do the webinar?
Yeah, I think the benefits are, there's multiple benefits to it. First of all, Nathan is incredibly, I don't even want to say talented, because I know he's put a lot of hard work into it, into being that really engaging, really quick. He has this kind of natural, almost like heat-seeking missile finder for the most interesting pieces of data that SaaS founders would want to know about. So we're really lucky in that way. And it would be honestly really stupid if we didn't leverage that. I think that one of the resources that I use a lot is Market One. It's with Emily Kramer. She's an awesome resource. She was head of marketing at Asana, Carta rather. And she speaks a lot on these marketing advantages. Like, what are your unique marketing advantages that you have as a company? And this is one of our marketing advantages, is that Nathan is really good at being compelling and resonating with people. And he's also not afraid to be controversial. I think that's something that I've worked with a lot of CEOs. And sometimes that can be one of the hurdles, is like, well, I don't want to piss anyone off, or this content is, a little spicy or something like that. And, not to go out to create controversy for the sake of controversy, but it can be helpful if people have strong opinions. You're starting a conversation. So I think that's a huge, huge benefit for us. And it also ensures that we're really aligned across teams. Because, Nathan, obviously as CEO, is involved in, our product, our sales, our marketing, our engineering teams. And it really helps kind of bring everything together. And, personally, as a marketer, I'm not having to have that battle of tying, every single cent of ROI to something we want to test, which I think can stifle creativity a bit. Not that we don't measure that, but it lets us do things that, might not be perfectly measurable, and see how they go.
Yeah, I mean, by the time that something is becomes a best practice, it's not a best practice anymore. It's just the common practice, really. And so if you want to be at the frontier, you need to be doing things that are kind of unproven and that a lot of people are not doing and that you maybe can't measure perfectly. Besides, the willingness to maybe have a hot take and be a little controversial and being involved in different parts of the business, are there any other characteristics or attributes that you would look for in a founder and CEO to evaluate whether they are the right fit for you to leverage in your marketing?
Yeah, I think they have to be truly passionate about the community and audience that you're serving. They have to really want to be helpful to them and be really excited about it. and have a deep understanding of, them, not just as a pain point and a problem, but the more holistic view of that, like who are they as people? And that is something that we've been really lucky with. Like Nathan was a SaaS founder. I mean, he is a SaaS founder now, but he was also before this and has gone through a lot of these kind of like, emotional cycles that come with being a founder. That doesn't, just speak to, you need money, here's capital. Obviously, that's like our bread and butter, but kind of we take a more like holistic view of the founder. And that's been, I think, a huge advantage. Also, just him having such a platform already before, like we're obviously continuing to grow his platform, but we weren't starting from 0 to 1. We had an idea of some things that were working there too. I think the challenge has been maybe even trying to like wean ourselves off of the Get Latka platform as like the sole kind of, they're not the same company, but they are a huge kind of funnel for us. But we've put a lot of effort into building Founderpath as its own content brand as well. The podcast still obviously hugely important, but we're also starting to stand on our own legs a little bit too. So that's been definitely one of the challenges we've had. But I mean, obviously it's a huge advantage as well.
Do you mean when you say standing on your own legs, do you mean more like Founderpath, the company does marketing instead of Nathan, or it's just moving away from the Get Latka branding and idea that people had that, oh, Nathan Latka, he has a list, but really understanding that it's something else now, really?
Yeah, a bit of both. Having people know Founderpath as well as Nathan. Because we definitely see that, as you said, like a lot of your audience is going to know who Nathan is. And I bet there's a good chunk of them that might not know about Founderpath. They might just know him from the podcast or, seeing a LinkedIn post or something.
Makes sense. Could we maybe break down, so what are the different programs that you guys are running right now? And let's specifically focus on the founder-led parts. How do you bucket them? What are the kind of different things that you guys are running?
Yeah, so I would say we're really leveraging kind of events as our main go-to-market, if you will. We have, as you said, we have those monthly. I call them live calls because you're right, webinar doesn't really do them justice. So if you can think of a sexier name for that, that would be great. And that obviously you've been on them. That speaks so much to Nathan's strengths. Like we literally rent out a studio in Austin. We have multiple camera angles. We've like put a lot of work into the like rhythm and pacing and who we have on as guests and partners. And it almost really is like we host a monthly like live television show. It's not that different from when I was in a studio in New York working with Mel and we had, teams of producers and Sony Pictures and all of this. It's obviously at a very different level, very different subject matter, but the thought that goes into the production there is a lot. So that's, the monthly kind of one. On a more frequent basis, we do have our founder-led community. It's called Founder-led, so same name as the podcast. And we do bi-weekly, we call them Ask Me Anythings, totally stole that from Reddit. They're just very informal, and they're a lot smaller than the webinars. Usually, I think we've topped out at like 100 people. They're just really informal, 30-minute conversations with SaaS founders and operators. We had one early in December with Andrew Gazdecki from Acquire. We have, who else is coming up now? I'm trying to think of our next schedule. I actually just confirmed a bunch that aren't on the website yet, but it's a really great little forum. And those are designed to be a little bit more intimate, just a little bit more one-to-one touches with founders. And then kind of bringing that back out on a macro level, twice a year, we do our signature conference, SaaS Open. So that is a much larger scale. We do it in Austin, Texas, coming up at the end of March, actually. And then we'll be in New York at the beginning of September. So those are 2-day in-person, jam-packed conferences. We have keynotes, we have interviews, we have a podcast lounge. And we also do what we call brainstorms, which are like mini little workshops that you can set up around topics. So all of those things are really our kind of key way of getting our name out there, on the more the not the brand side, but kind of the brand side. But then it also obviously flows through to our deal flow as well. But those things are really, I think, kind of taking it back a step, to what Founderpath is, like our bread and butter is we are capital. We're a capital provider for SaaS companies, and capital requires a lot of trust. It requires a lot of relationships. It's not just, going to G2 and looking at the top 3 software companies and, picking HubSpot versus Salesforce or maybe some combination of the two. There's a lot more emotion behind it and a lot more trust is required. And these are ways of building relationships with founders on a one-to-one level, getting FaceTime. I love those conferences. I do. They're so much fun because I love seeing the founders that I talked to on Slack or maybe met on LinkedIn. And it really feels like, for me, it feels like, getting a bunch of friends together. Obviously it's work and I'm tired after, but it's really fun. And then those monthly sessions, providing ourselves as a resource. You've been on them. They're interactive. We also want them to be a place where you can ask questions and get, information you're not going to find anywhere else and directly from the source. So it's really, building trust and education, I guess I'll say authority, topical authority, if you will, in the space.
Right. So a lot of events, I want to just focus a little bit on the monthly live show, a live call that you guys do, because I feel like you guys are the masterclass in this. And anyone who hasn't been to that event, it's very hard to describe unless you've been there. It's a 1 hour, fully immersive, like group call. I almost feel like I watch a what is it called? Like a game show host. Like Nathan is the game show host, and he has this big screens behind him, and there's this agenda, and he brings on people and guests, and he points people out, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he brings people into the conversation, and he asks people to answer polls and questions that pop up at random moments, and so there's lots of companies doing webinars and events and those types of things, and like I'm trying to do a weekly one. You guys do it monthly, so I'm just curious, how do you do a great live event? Like you guys do a great live event. How do you get people to show up? I feel like it's just really difficult. People are busy. They feel like they can just listen to it on the podcast afterwards. How do you pick the right topics? How do you make it engaging for people to stick around? You can take it any way you want, any lessons, insights, things that you guys focus on, but how do you do a great live event?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's such like a common marketing tactic, right? Like, oh, we'll do a webinar. And that's why a lot of them really suck because it's a box checking exercise. For us, it's become like, it really is its own beast. And we looked at like, okay, what normally like kind of sucks about a webinar? It's just one person talking at you for 30 minutes to an hour, or maybe there's a panel of 3 to 4 people and they're just talking to each other. It's very easy to like open another tab, keep it on in the background and do work. We've designed it so that you're not going to do that. And Nathan specifically says this sometimes when we're live. He's like, all right, come back to this tab because what's on the screen right now, you're going to want to see. And like, if you're doing that, you're coming back. And he does call out people for conversation live, and he studies the attendee list beforehand, and I study it. And, we flag people of like, ooh, like that's a good person. You should call on them. And he's really good at noticing too. Like we had Andrew Davies from Paddle on our January one, just as an attendee. He wasn't, a partner or anything. So Nathan worked him into the content. So I think we've kind of solved for the things that suck about webinars. Is the content is really stale. It's something that you can watch on a recording and you're not going to get a different experience from being live. Because for us, the live experience has been the focus. So bringing on those guests, having them answer live questions, having kind of interactive elements to it, the polls and tailoring the content that way and making you feel like you're really involved, and not making you feel that way. Like the audience is very involved. That's the truth. And also being really responsive to the feedback that we get in terms of topics, format, layout, presentation. I think we're lucky that the number one complaint is about time zones, of like what time of day we have it, because it's always 1 a.m. in Australia or 8 p.m. in Europe, but we're not going to make everyone happy. So I think, yeah, we've been really really militant about what we're testing. And we have no problem like killing our darlings either. Like if we think something's going to work and we find that it doesn't work over 2 weeks, or over 2 months, then we're scrapping it. We're not, attached to it. And then we've built a really solid playbook for the things we know work. That's really repeatable, like down to the day that we're supposed to do it. It's nothing fancy. It's literally built in Google Sheets. It's just like a dynamic spreadsheet that changes dates and times and has like links to playbooks and stuff. But it helps us keep on track so that we know we're doing the things that work. We're able to incorporate new kind of tests. Like one of the things we tried was actually live streaming it on LinkedIn. And it was a disaster for many reasons. The studio that day happened to have a Wi-Fi issue. So it just didn't work. And we were like, all right, for the stress and how it's worked, like, no, we're killing that one, even though it had good ideas. We thought it was a good idea on merit. Everything told us it should have worked, but it was really just kind of a hassle. And we're like, okay, we'll maintain it as, live. You kind of have to be here. We do publish the recordings afterwards, and those become content assets for us to repurpose. The LinkedIn post I just did today was inspired from our last webinar. We were talking about different kind of app marketplaces, app exchanges as a way of driving traffic. It's on the Founderpath page, not mine. And we came up with kind of 11 marketplaces you should look at. And then in the comments, all these people are adding their own. So that's another part of it that's cool. And, we go in the chat log, we pull them out, and that becomes content for us as well.
So you guys do publish them, like the whole thing, because the whole interview, the whole show? Because I've always looked for them. I'm like, I don't see a recording anywhere, except if I like sign up to the thing. I think you guys send the deck or something afterwards. And I think one time I even asked you for the recording and you send it to me. Where do you guys publish it?
Yeah, so we publish it. If you go to founderpath.com/resources, we have a massive resource library and we'll publish them on there. We will email it out afterwards with a link to that. You do have to sign up for a Founderpath account. It's free just to access some of the content, but we actually break them down into courses. So if you go in there and you're like, I really just wanted to watch this part of the second section, you can actually just go in and like click on that. So we do send it out, but it's not like, here's a Zoom link, you're kind of on your own. We do a little bit of post-processing work on the end as well.
Yeah, because I didn't know that, and two, it feels to me exclusive, because I think also a lot of live events is like, and we do it too, because I'm like, well, we don't get a lot of people to show up live. So like, I do want to publish it on YouTube and Spotify and everywhere, because then at least more people can see it. But then also you're losing kind of the sense of exclusivity. It's like, well, I can listen to it afterwards. And then, okay, you need to make it really great that they can ask questions or something during the thing. But I don't know, it feels exclusive, your event.
Yeah. And, you don't get the same experience with the recording. Like, you've been to our webinars, we also like to have fun and put in little bonuses and stuff. If you take this poll, we'll send you this, spreadsheet. You won't get that really in the recording.
You sent out books last time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, my God. My Amazon, because I just sent them out from my account and the company card. And it was like 15 books. And like my phone is just Amazon. It's like deliver. But it was Christine Reed. She won, but she's super excited. That was a new test this month. Because I literally I can't see my bookshelf, but a good portion of those books are on my shelf that Nathan has sent me. And he's like, why don't we try doing this? Like, we're talking about it anyways. And like, let's just see if, this works. And it's a giveaway that is also very authentic to the experience and the audience. Cause we could do, you win $200 to Amazon. Yay. but that's not like special in a way. It's kind of just like, oh, we want to give something away. Here's the lowest, common denominator. And we were like, what if we just did a bunch of copywriting books? You're not going to buy that for yourself, but like anyone in SaaS is like, yes, I want that.
That's awesome. How do you guys pick the topic? I feel like you guys must have learned something about like what makes a great topic for a show.
Yeah. And this is, again, where we're really lucky to have Nathan because he's kind of like a human encyclopedia of SaaS tactics because he's done so many interviews. And again, he has that like radar for digging in when something's really interesting. So when we were getting started with the webinar series, we were already so lucky that we had this kind of library to pull from those interviews. And then it became a bit easier to group them together into common themes around like, okay, these are 3 ways to drive traffic. These are 3 ways to increase your, average contract value. And we would pull examples. So I think that's another benefit is that Nathan's a really visual learner. I'm a really visual learner. I think it's a really effective way to learn. And we've put that into the webinar with examples so that it's not, just, all right, go get G2 reviews and you'll get traffic. It's like, hey, like Mohammed from VFairs used this exact email copy and he got, over 2,000 reviews. Like here, try and tweak it. And we have like the screenshot of that and the reviews and everything. And it makes it much more compelling, I think, when there are examples like that, so that not only are you exposed to the idea, you see, I guess, like the concrete action and the tactic in process as well. So we're just really lucky that we have, and it's been very intentional to build up that kind of library, which we also do now with our content from SaaS Open. So we'll have over 100 more speakers on stage in a little over a month from now. And then those all become potential little sections for our webinars. So it all kind of feeds together.
And I feel like you guys also have a structure that you guys repeat. I think it's Ryan Holiday who when he writes a book, he always has 3 main chapters or 3 main parts, and then each part has 10 chapters. So when he writes a new book, he already knows, okay, I'm going to have 30 chapters. Now it's just backfilling what is the section and what's the chapter. And I feel like you guys always have like 3 main topics, and then per topic you have 3 examples, like 3 ways to decrease churn, 3 ways to increase LTV, and then each point out of the 9 points you have is a case study. So it's not a general point. It's like this specific company with this specific founder did this specific thing. And I feel like it makes it, I'm sure for you guys, there is some repeatability that when you think about scaling this and making it streamlined and time efficient for you and Nathan, in a way that you have a certain structure that you follow each time.
Yeah, that definitely helps with like the repeatability. We're not reinventing the wheel every month, but we are still innovating within that format. So it kind of gives us the creative constraints. Like we know it works. That format's been really helpful. It's designed, and Ryan Holiday does this, I think, that, because of the same reasons. And if you go to SaaS Open, you'll see our keynotes are all formatted the same way, no matter who you are as a speaker. Okay, small caveat, there's like some little exceptions. Like, we had some big names on stage that we'll give little exceptions to. They can do an interview or maybe their own content. But
Henry Schuck gets the exception.
Yeah, he gets the exception. But the vast majority, we kind of force speakers into the same 3x3 grid because it helps break down in a cohesive way so that there are takeaways. It makes it so that it's not so theoretical or so high level that you walk away and you're like, what did I actually just learn and how would I apply it? It's like, okay, I just got 3 ideas around this that like maybe 2 of them won't work for me, but that 3rd one, I think I could adapt to my business. And now I have the resources to go do that. So that format is, I think, really also like a key piece of our success. And finding that format that's repeatable, that also the points are broken up in such a way that like human beings can actually remember them. Like we don't have 15 points under there. We have 3, and you're probably going to remember those 3.
Why did you guys end up on monthly? Why not more or less?
We found that was the frequency that we had enough time to prepare the content to the kind of high bar that we set for ourselves. B, do some of the other prep and promotion work on the back end, like getting guests and, sometimes we leverage partners to see if we can grow that registration list as well. And just, we're a very small team. There's only, I think, 13, 14 of us full-time on Founderpath. And then we have contractors and agencies we work with. But that was the cadence where A, people didn't get sick of us too much. And B, we could produce the highest quality possible.
Interesting. How do you guys, what lessons have you guys learned on how to promote it?
Yeah, we've tried a lot of different things. I think one of the most interesting things I think I've learned on this is partners are a huge part of how we grow the audience. And the size, and this, probably isn't a revolutionary insight, but the size of someone's list or audience is not in any way related to how it will perform. I think the best place to partner is with smaller creators that have a really deep relationship with their audience. Ben Murray, the SaaS CFO, is an example. He has a fantastic audience. And it's not small by any means, but it's not like he has, 500,000 people on his email list or something like that. But I know that when we partner with him, and we work on him with a lot, it's not just webinars. I know we're going to get another 250 registrations from his list, which is a lot. That's a lot of registrations because people trust him. They love his content. He's done the work. Whereas we've partnered in the past with, maybe someone that said, oh, I have 150,000 people on my list. And, I was like, great, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to smash my goals this month. We're going to get so many registrations. And doing all the tracking, I was like, what the fuck? We got 10.
Wow.
And the audiences were very aligned. It wasn't like, we went and did, I don't know, Asana or something like that. And it's all about project management. Like it was all very aligned to B2B SaaS founders. And it was just really surprising to see kind of the results here. So partners has been a huge promotional channel for us. We're still figuring it out because obviously every month we're not going to, bother Ben's audience, but we probably do about once a quarter. And another one is also capturing, while you have a live audience, getting them signed up for the next one. So about 75% through the webinar, with the people that are still there, it's probably a pretty good guess that they're engaged when you're about 40 minutes in. They've been there, most of the time. And you say, hey, join us next month. Go here, and make it really easy because you already have them live and engaged. They know it's good. So that is how we drive probably, 200 to 300 registrations, like right off the bat every month. So that's definitely a huge thing. And, we do it at SaaS Open too. One of our biggest ticket sales days is the last day of our previous event. Cause you're there, you're having a good time. We make the prices really low so that you can't say no. And then we're already off to the races.
I don't know if you guys consider them partners, but you guys obviously also bring in guest speakers who have their own audience and drive the interest. I know last time you guys brought on Adam Robinson, and he's killing LinkedIn right now. I'm going to have him on the podcast next week. So I was like, I need to be there because I need to know what he talks about on this one, so I can incorporate that or whatever. And then he shared it. Obviously, he has an audience. So is that a partner to you guys, or is it just guest speaker?
He's more of a guest speaker. He, just agreed he was excited to be there. And we were like, hey, wrote some copy, no pressure. We made it really easy for him to share. Obviously, he's also like the king of LinkedIn. So he was like, yeah, I'm doing this. So yeah, I would say we have, bucketing them. We have more traditional partners where there's kind of a give-get, where with with Ben, I mean, we'd feature his content anyways also, so he's kind of a unique partner, but we'll do kind of an exchange, hey, Ben Murray's metrics course is coming out this quarter. We'll show that to our audience, A, because it is relevant, and B, like, Ben makes great content that we don't have to make. And then in exchange, he'll promote our webinar to his audience. He'll join live and, maybe add as a guest speaker as well. Then we do have like those just straight up guest speakers. Think of them as like almost like talk show guests where they're talking about their experiences. And we leverage our connections, from different people we've had at SaaS Open, just people we're connecting with. So that's a really great way to build relationships. And it's really fun for the audience and for us too. And I think it's a little bit less of a commitment for a busy CEO like Adam to come on and do 15 minutes than it is like, hey, we want to have you on this whole webinar as a panel, and you have to be there the whole hour. Most founders actually end up staying because they're like, wow, this is great. Or even, coming back. But so they're not like fully partner. They're maybe in that like hybrid bucket. And then we have worked with like just straight up like sponsors in the past too. They're, paying for that spot on the webinar. So that'll be a little different. They won't necessarily like promote it to their audience, but we will incorporate them into the content as well.
Right. Moving on to live events. So you guys have SaaS Open, you do it twice a year. You have it coming up in Austin. How do you do a great conference? Is it same as a live event? Just make it engaging? What are the differences here maybe that you guys have learned?
Live events, in person are not for the faint of heart. They require a tremendous amount of work and investment. So I'll just the caveat there. And I mean that in the range of, the huge conferences you see at SaaStr all the way down to even like a simple, what you would think is like a simple dinner of 20 people. They are a lot of work. So like going into that, just knowing that and like preparing yourself, I think is like a step one. B, I think people love SaaS Open because we are really ruthless about the content that gets on stage. And that can be really hard because I can be a people pleaser. I don't want to make people feel bad, but sometimes if the content isn't up to the bar that we want, it's too high level, it's, there's not examples, or, maybe it just doesn't fit, like we'll cut them. And we do get really good feedback on the quality of our content. It's not the same speech that you'll go and hear at 5 different SaaS conferences. We do require it to be very original. So I think that's been kind of our stake in the ground. Another one is the actual just like experience of it when you walk into a room. We're very, very picky on the venues that we choose. We don't want to walk into a hotel ballroom with terrible carpet and no outdoor light, and the food sucks. Like there's a little coffee bar or anything. So we toured probably 15 venues in Austin to find the hotel we ended up going with, which is beautiful. It's called The Line. It's very cool inside. So we're really excited about that because that just makes the experience so much more energizing for people. If it feels like you're, at a specific place versus like any generic hotel conference ballroom kind of thing. And we've all been to conferences like that. So I think those are just 2 things that we're pretty picky about for the sake of the experience. We're also, we also take advantage of not just the keynotes, but what happens around the conference. And our kind of inspiration for that was South by Southwest, because there's, the actual South by Southwest programming, but then what's happened is there's so many pop-up events around it that it's become this like week-long behemoth that takes over Austin. And we're doing that with these, we have like curated dinners that we'll do around them. And now this year we're starting to see other people start to do their own curated dinners around it too. So we're trying to become that like hub of other activity around it as well. So at least that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And did I see correctly that you guys actually acquired SaaS Open, or is this a completely done in-house event?
It is completely done in-house, but we acquired kind of the assets. Yeah. So we run it all. We have an absolutely incredible executive event producer that we work with. Her name is Mandy Miranda. I've worked with her many times in the past. She comes from a background in television production. So she is a huge piece of why it's successful as well.
Right. Interesting. And I feel like you guys talk, your audience is SaaS founders and CEOs. And I feel like that speaks even more to you guys because that's probably a high standard audience because everyone wants to get to the founders and CEOs, and everyone wants to get their attention, and they are probably the busiest person in the company. And so for them to show up to your live events and to your in-person event, it just speaks even more to the quality of the experience that you guys can deliver. To me, the main takeaway here is both for the live events and the in-person events, it's that it really matters going that last mile. Like people are so saturated with all of these webinars and events that if you make this a box checking exercises of saying, okay, we need to do a webinar. Okay, we need to do an event. So let's do it as easy as possible. I don't want to spend too much money on this whole thing. Just get it done. It's just not going to work. But if you spend 3 or 4 times the amount of energy and resources into making it a really great experience, the result will be far greater than 3 or 4 times because suddenly you actually cut through the noise and people actually want to come back because it was just fun to be there.
Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head there is like, what can you do to make it a really memorable experience in that A, they learned something, B, it was fun, C, it was a little unexpected. Like your first Founderpath webinar, were you expecting anything like that?
My first webinar, he called me out and he was like, Finn, he like, I don't know. I don't know if I had no video on or something, but I wasn't paying attention. But he was like, Finn, what do you do? And I was like, holy shit, what? But I came back and it was kind of like, yeah, it was an experience. You don't forget that.
Yeah, and we want to make it like you're going to remember that. And also, we're taking the time as much as we can to know who is there. It's not just an email with a phone number and a job title in our CRM. It's like, okay, who's Finn? Like, what's important to him? Why does he come? Does he like this content? Would he share it? Is he having a good time? And the same with our events too. People are spending a tremendous amount of money, yes, but also time, which is even more valuable when you're a founder. So it needs to be top notch. It needs to deliver. It needs to make them feel energized and have a tangible benefit to them, as well as being an amazing experience. And the experiences are the things that people are really going to remember. I think one of my favorite little anecdotes about this is I forget what the book is called now, but anyways, it goes into this case study of there's this hotel in California, and it's in LA, the land of luxury hotels, right? And the one that I think comes up like second or third in the Yelp results, and I'm going to forget the name of it now. Like it isn't this 5-star hotel. It isn't, one of the big names. But one of the things in the reviews, if you look at it, that people are really excited about is they have this really nice pool outside, and then they have this like bright red telephone. And if you pick it up, it's the popsicle hotline. And pick it up and they tell you their flavors and you're like, yes, I would like a cherry popsicle. And a like waiter in a tuxedo comes and brings it out on a silver platter, like the whole thing. He's got gloves on. He gives you this popsicle. How much does a popsicle cost? Probably like 10 cents if you buy them in enough bulk. But so many of the reviews remember that just because it's like this little unexpected, like fun experience. And that stands out in people's minds. And so I kind of like to say, like, what's the popsicle test? Like, what can we surprise people with? What are they going to remember? What are they excited about on our webinars or our live events? So like for you, like Nathan not calling you out in a bad way, but like letting you know that he knew that you were there. It wasn't just like some nameless person on a registration list. And we try to do that.
What's your favorite popsicle moment in your guys' history? Does anyone come to mind?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I need to think for a minute on that. I should probably have one of these examples like ready to go, right?
No, I mean, all good. I can ask you the next question and maybe
Yeah,
something
ask me
pops
the
into your
next
mind.
question and then yeah, we'll come back to this one.
How do you work, you as the head of marketing or marketer, how do you work with a busy CEO if you want to do this type of thing? Obviously, Nathan is very bought in and he understands that this is important and he's willing to spend the time, but he's also busy and he's doing lots of other things. And I'm sure he is not down to do anything that doesn't really require him. Um, so, do you have some tips for marketers working with a super busy founder and CEO on how to help them do the thing that you need them to do, but also in a way that they're willing to do it?
Yeah, I think again, really lucky with Nathan. Like he loves content. Like he truly loves this stuff. So it's not been like a super uphill battle. Like sometimes are we a little closer to the wire than I'd like to be? Sure. But it's because he's excited about the content. He's like, I found this. I want to add it in. But I think some of the things that have been really successful for me in working with Nathan, who is, you're right, an incredibly busy person who is constantly has his hands in so many things, is being like really clear about what I need from him, when, and why. Um, and that checklist that I was talking about helps a lot because like he can go in at any point and also see like, okay, like I'm late on this and Danielle is blocked, like this blocks the next 5 things we need to do. And if those things are blocked, like we are not going to hit our registration goal. So we've done a lot of work together making those things very clear. And that's helped kind of set the importance of like the why. So I think, and I've made this mistake earlier in my career where it's so clear to me in my head why I need you to do this, but I haven't like actually taken the time to be like, okay, can you post this on LinkedIn? Here's why it's written this way, XYZ. So I think kind of teeing that up is like, table stakes for a CEO. And even before that, getting that buy-in on like the whole idea of like, why are we doing a webinar? Like, I'm not just like sticking them up in front of a camera because, we want to do a webinar. It's all right. If this is successful, here's what we're going to achieve. And again, Nathan is a very visual person. And, your CEO might be different in a way. So like you kind of have to find how they prefer to digest information, but really painting a picture of like, okay, if we go and do this webinar series in 6 months, we're going to learn XYZ and hopefully have like, ABC results. And here's where I need you in that kind of process. Here's where you fit in. And that's worked really well with Nathan. I also leverage a lot of Loom videos so he can, I'll do a draft run of the deck, walk through it for 10 minutes, send it over. He can watch it on 2 times speed. There's like my questions for him in there and he'll do the same thing for me. And it's great because if he can't get to that till the end of the day, like I'm not waiting to have to hop on live with him or anything like that.
Makes sense. That question just popped into my mind. How far in advance do you plan your monthly?
So we try and set the dates for the next quarter at least 60 days before because we do have to like actually book a studio. So we'll do that and that kind of kickstarts everything. And then this is where that checklist comes in handy really well is like we have it broken down to, all right, it is 20 days before the webinar. We need the deck to be at this point. We need to have confirmed these partners. These emails need to have gone out. This, backend needs to be set up on the website, like, the day of the previous webinar so we can switch over those links really fast, make sure people are getting registered. So I would say it's probably about a 30-day cycle. Again, back to why it's once a month instead of, more or less frequently.
Right. Damn, I want to get my hands on that checklist. That must have been that must be so meticulously engineered at this point.
And it's always changing. was just going to say at the end of, each webinar, I have a document. It's just a running document that's like learnings and, any changes, experiments, and we'll go through that. Any feedback, like, LinkedIn Live, not working for us. And then we'll actually, update the checklist, the template. I'm sorry. It always does that. The like motion things. Maybe I tried a different email format 3 days before and it worked really well. So that's now been codified as part of the playbook, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have all your list of like, send books to this person. And I feel like all the goodies that Nathan just thrown there, and he's just like, Danielle, can you make sure that you get that name and we send them this thing? And you now need to chase after that person.
Nathan likes to keep me on my toes live.
Yeah, totally. Did any popsicle moment come into mind?
Yeah. So have you been to SaaS Talk in Dublin? So really, it's actually a very fun conference. And so this was last year. We also did sponsor the most recent year, but the year before this one. It was like our first big like booth play at an event. And we really went with this kind of theme of we were making the SaaS museum because we had all these cool documents and we call them artifacts of like the LOI that Henry Schuck used to acquire something. And we got really into the design of it to make it look like an actual museum, like to the point where we had like a backlit display case with these USBs that contained all of the documents. And what we did, and this is Nathan's crazy genius on stage, is he caused like a mad rush to go get them. And it like, I can send you a picture afterwards of this. Like we got absolutely swarmed and everyone in the event was like, what the hell is going on? And I thought there was like an accident or something at first. Like we knew he was doing it, but I was not expecting like, 100 people to all of a sudden like come running at us. And we were all just like handing out these USBs. And I still hear about that moment because it was just so unexpected. Like you're at a SaaS conference, like, and it was like we were giving out like, $100 bills or something. And it was just so memorable. And it also kind of created this like hive mentality of like, we have to get the USB. We have to get it. And it was like this like little like prized possession. And so that was definitely something that sticks out. Another one that I really liked was last year at our SaaS event or our SaaS Open event in New York City. We have a VIP room. We always do that. We take kind of like the top name speakers and we have them do private, like 30-minute sessions afterwards with a smaller group of people. It does cost more to get into that room, obviously, but it can be extremely valuable. And, I hate wasting money on swag. Like I love a good t-shirt. I'm very picky about the material we'll use, but we didn't really do a ton of, kind of branded giveaways. It's just not wholly our thing. But the one thing I did do for that room specifically was get these really nice, it's a company called Royce Leather, luggage tags. And they just had a very subtle like press print of our logo and Founderpath in like a nice tan, like deep leather. It's like a luggage tag. And it was like boxed really nicely. And it's like a luggage tag, probably not something you're going to buy for yourself. Everyone's going to use one if you get one. And people were traveling to and from the conference. And they were like, that was just such a nice note. And like, people are like, oh, I think of Founderpath every time I pack my bag now because it's on my bag. And I was like, that was my idea. So thank you. So like little things like that.
All right, we'll end it here. Danielle, thank you so much for your time. This was awesome. I feel like there's lots of nuggets in here for founders or marketers who want to leverage the founder more in their marketing and how to run great events. So thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Thank you for having me.